On the day that Dinesh stepped into his new role as a Coast Guard trainee, it felt like he had climbed a high mountain. His tireless efforts and commitment towards this career were a source of pride for his entire family. His grandma, mom, and sisters even made the journey to send him off on his maiden voyage. Thankfully, his brother and father couldn't make it. Otherwise, the whole clan would have descended on the dock. Initially, Dinesh felt somewhat self-conscious, but seeing a few others also encounter similar family voyages, his uneasiness quickly disappeared. He gave a quick wave to his awaiting family before hurrying toward the dock. Welcome to the unusual, where we dive into the untold, the bizarre, and the extraordinary. If you're ready for more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and stay with us, because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. To Dinesh, the modest-sized Coast Guard vessel carried an otherworldly aura. It may have been small, but it carried a commanding presence. He envisioned himself in the role of a hero, making headlines island-wide, such as a daredevil rescue of a tourist who drifted too far on a makeshift raft or foiling the plans of smuggling syndicates. In his most audacious dreams, he saw himself thwarting a pirate incursion. Despite the assurances that their excursion was going to be close to their shores, his mind drifted to heroic high-seas exploits. Because there were machine guns strategically placed around the ship, boosted his belief that victory would surely be theirs. As he stepped on board, he had to resist the urge to reach out and touch everything in his vicinity. On the agenda for that day was a run-of-the-mill cruise along the island's coastline. The superior officers were interested to see the trainees in real-life maritime operations. It was Dinesh's turn to showcase his expertise at the helm, something he wasn't nervous about. He had grown up near the shore, and a large chunk of his life was spent at sea. With his grandpa and dad being seasoned fishermen, Dinesh had an inherent knack for operating all kinds of aquatic transportation, ranging from small boats to larger vessels. Apart from that, he had an excellent grasp of navigational charts and the ability to navigate by identifying constellations on the coastal skyline, sans any sophisticated gadgets. As he was supposed to be paying close attention to the guide, he found himself awestruck by the ship in all its glory. "Are you enjoying it?" a friendly crew member prompted. "Absolutely," responded Dinesh with enthusiasm. "I just wish it had a hoist." "A hoist? This is a Coast Guard ship, not some random trawler," the soldier burst out laughing. "Every vessel could use a hoist," Dinesh responded casually. They were soon given a directive by the captain to head out to sea. Dinesh observed the team's movements closely, and as the dock receded, he wormed his way next to the navigator, firing off an avalanche of questions at a furious rate. At the onset, the navigator patiently answered every question with a pleasant grin. However, as the incessant barrage of questions continued, his patience wore thin. He attempted to drive the inquisitive Dinesh away, but to no avail. Eventually, he came up with an important task for him, handed him a pair of binoculars, and asked him to go on deck to monitor the surroundings, which Dinesh found dreadfully dull. Their vessel had ventured so far out to sea that the land was merely a thin strip, seen only through their binoculars. All around was an endless ocean, devoid of any other ships, yachts, or even small rowboats. On deck was a battle-hardened sailor, scanning the environment with his binoculars. Dinesh doubted he could observe anything that would elude this seasoned seafarer, but there wasn't much else to do. The commander was yet to give cadets control of the ship, so Dinesh found himself aimlessly sweeping the ocean's surface with his binoculars. Suddenly, he noticed an odd formation jutting out of the water. It was far, too far to determine exactly what it was, but Dinesh was certain that it was not a vessel. He glanced at his crew members, who were all looking elsewhere. He peered again through his binoculars, wondering if he'd imagined it all. But there it was, this curious object still visible on the horizon. Dinesh rushed to the commander about the anomaly. Soon, every crew member was straining to see. As a matter of protocol, they altered course to investigate this strange sighting. Speculations ran wild on deck. Many suggested it could be a dead shark or dolphin. Such occurrences were not uncommon, but Dinesh was not convinced. As they neared the gray dot on the horizon, Dinesh was the first to notice a movement that ruled out the possibility of a deceased sea creature. "It's an elephant," Dinesh announced. The crew members laughed. Heat must be getting to you, they joked, but Dinesh kept his focus on the horizon. He had seen an unmistakable trunk in the water. Elephants in Sri Lanka were well known for their love of water, and Dinesh had seen them bathing in the rivers. Locals would even arrange paid tours to take visitors to popular elephant bathing spots. Dinesh also knew that elephants were skilled swimmers. He just hadn't thought he'd see one in the middle of the ocean. The crew continued to joke about Dinesh's sunstroke, but their vessel grew closer to the gray mass. Soon enough, even the hardened sailor could see the elephant in the water without the aid of binoculars. Gasps of disbelief filled the air. The enormous animal was submerging its head. Only its back and vast head were visible. Occasionally, a trunk could be seen surfacing from the water, inhaling heavily before vanishing back underneath the ocean's waves. Incredible. It indeed is an elephant, an incredulous officer announced. We must assist it, but how? The men seemed at a loss for what to do. I told you we have to have a winch on the board, complained Dinesh, but they did not have one. They were missing the necessary equipment to extract the creature from the water and place it on the deck safely. The captain quickly retreated into the cabin and contacted a nature reserve in Sri Lanka, which was known for its elephant population. Their Animal Protection Society swiftly reacted to the predicament. They did not have any specialized gear for this situation. Facing an elephant in the middle of the ocean was a first-time experience for anyone involved. Yet, they proposed a plan. At first blush, it appeared straightforward. The elephant had to be secured to the patrol boat using ropes. Next, they needed to gently guide the elephant back to shallow waters without scaring it. The creature would then be able to leave the water independently. The idea was heartily endorsed by the Coast Guard. Implementing it, however, wasn't without difficulty. Firstly, they extracted several sturdy ropes. Approaching the marine animal was nerve-wracking, though. Manual manipulation of ropes aboard the tall ship, especially in water, proved difficult. As the elephant was submerged, they were required to dive under it to secure it. They were also wary of the elephant's reaction. The creature might get scared of the ship's vast bulk. Panicked reactions can be detrimental at sea. The guards feared that a disturbed elephant could end up sinking. To address this, they utilized a small motorboat from the ship. Diving in the open ocean posed a risk of extremely low body temperature. Further, they did not have details about the elephant's size and how long they would need to remain submerged. As a result, scuba gear and wetsuits were brought out. Dinesh volunteered to wear the diving attire. Not all crew members wished to be closer to the creature. The elephant's hefty limbs could inadvertently strike the diver on the head, which was a risk. The water could cushion the impact to an extent, but the threat remained real. Another challenge was securing the elephant without causing harm. A rope around its neck might inadvertently strangulate it, rendering the rescue operation futile. Someone then proposed wrapping the ropes around the elephant's body like a harness. Hence, the divers dedicated some extra minutes to devise a definite strategy, rehearsing movements with a rolled-up sleeping bag. It didn't quite resemble an elephant, but time for detailed practice was limited. There was no telling how long the creature had been in the water or how much longer it could survive. Eventually, some courageous individuals descended into the boat, ropes at the ready. There was a sense of trepidation as people neared the creature. No one knew how the elephant might respond under stress, so they opted to maintain a safe distance. They even deactivated the motor prematurely to prevent additional agitation. Satisfied with the balloon's connection, Dinesh donned his mask, plunging into the water at the captain's signal. 5 divers, each clutching a rope end, went straight for the elephant. Dinesh was tasked with securing the rope at the front, but the captain was reluctant to let him venture beneath the creature. They were concerned about a potential heroic act leading to a hit on the head, which could subsequently require an extensive ocean search. The currents were notably strong. Reaching the elephant's head, Dinesh saw the wide-open look of fear and fatigue in its eyes. The elephant was managing to use its trunk to breathe above the water's surface, but curiously couldn't lift its head completely to gauge its bearings. The captain noticed a parallel movement pattern toward the shore. Continuing in this course, the elephant would ultimately tire itself out and succumb to the water. Alerts from animal advocates advised against approaching the elephant, proposing they swim from various angles and slowly tighten the ropes. Taking heed of their advice, the captain relayed the message to the divers. but Dinesh was too engrossed in the elephant's fear to register the input. He swam closer to the creature, gently placing his hand on its coarse surface and moving his palm along its cheek in a comforting gesture. He yearned to reassure the creature, to tell it, "You're going to be all right. We'll rescue you." Alas, communication was impossible due to his breathing apparatus and the language barrier. Nearby, two divers watched apprehensively as they guarded the elephant's front legs. They had retained the captain's words and anxiously anticipated the elephant's response to Dinesh's behavior. Despite this, the creature remained exceedingly calm, as though it had grown accustomed to scuba divers. After all, there is a reason why elephants are counted among the most intelligent creatures on Earth. The creature seemed to grasp that these individuals were there to assist. Not demonstrating any panic or apprehension with the divers around, it silently persisted while being looped with cords. People were able to slide the ropes beneath the elephant, but were faced with the challenge of securing them from above. Even with the divers swimming incredibly close to the elephant, their efforts to stretch the rope to the opposite side were in vain. Multiple strategies were tested, but none produced any results. And then Dinesh, with admirable audacity, ascended onto the back of the elephant. From here, he was able to tether the entire setup swiftly. The cord binding the elephant needed to be brought onto the vessel, where it was to be firmly tied before the vessel's towing commenced. Subsequently, all divers jumped back onto the boat. They stretched the end of the rope back to the Coast Guard ship, passing it over to the crew. The officer's command swiftly followed. "Great work, guys. Quickly get on the boat. We're heading back to shore." But Dinesh, the captain, retorted in earnest. "What if the elephant needs help while we're distant? We should coast alongside it. Doing so will lessen the elephant's anxiety." The officer considered this and agreed. The boat was put on a tow line. Now it bobbed between the large ship and the elephant, allowing the divers to closely monitor the mammal. When the rope guided the elephant sideways, it complied without resistance. The tether guided the elephant towards the shoreline, offering assistance against both currents and waves. The assembly gradually moved toward the faint outline of land. The captain was keen to ramp up the speed, but was unable to. The pressure could be too much for the elephant, or the mounting waves might cause it to drown. Thus they continued on their journey, gradually covering mile after mile. Aboard the ship, the debate continued over how the elephant found itself far out in the sea. The most plausible explanation seemed to be a powerful current that perhaps had swept it from a river's mouth to the deep sea. Trapped in the rocking waves, the innocent creature must have swum in the wrong direction. Soon the shoreline became visible. Speaking with the Animal Welfare Society, the captain updated them. Anticipatory, they had already gathered on the shore, with 2 vets in attendance should the elephant need medical treatment. The gratified captain once again stepped onto the deck. Half the journey had already been covered. His thoughts were rudely interrupted by the alarmed cries of the crew. Rushing to the side, he noticed that the elephant's back was no longer visible. The exploration team had already plunged into the water for a closer look. The ship's skipper halted the vessel promptly. The entire crew huddled at the ship's side, anxiously anticipating an update from the divers. They found it hard to accept the possibility that the elephant had submerged after enduring so many hardships. There was an alternative reason for the creature's vanishing act, such as the tether snapping. However, the line secured to the vessel was noticeably strained. Dinesh was the first one to make contact with the line. Feeling the rope's texture, he swiftly submerged into the water. He located the elephant not far beneath the water's surface. The elephant was making futile attempts to swim upwards, though its legs were ensnared in the slack lines, obstructing its progress. The divers rushed to its aid, disentangling it without interfering with the rescue mission. Once freed, the behemoth jerked itself upwards, inhaling air through its trunk. Spontaneous cheering resonated from the Coast Guard vessel, accompanied by vigorous applause. One commander remained deep in thought during the celebrations, ruminating on how to assist the creature in crossing the remaining distance. The vessel lacked the necessary life-saving rings, rafts, or personal flotation devices in the proper size. Nonetheless, they had at their disposal a few lifebuoys. Handing them over to the divers, the buoys were strapped around the creature's legs. Although this provided a partial solution, it did improve the elephant's swimming capability to some extent. The procession continued its relentless march, inching ever closer. The shallow water was beginning to come into view. The ship's deep draft denied it further advancement, leading the skipper to order a halt. The smaller powerboat could move ahead, but its power was insufficient to transport the elephant. Consequently, the divers immersed themselves once more to liberate the creature from all the ropes and buoys. The elephant appeared confused by the human's actions. It continued to flail its legs, each movement becoming slower than the last. "He seems to think we're abandoning him," one diver pointed out. "He seems to be giving up," another assent grudgingly. "It's likely because he can't spot the land. The vessel's obstructing his view," explained another. The divers hastily informed the skipper to veer the ship away. However, the elephant was still merely submerged and couldn't see the developments on the surface. Despite the urgent warnings from his team, Dinesh swam near the elephant. He surfaced directly in front of the creature's eyes and gestured towards it. To double-check if the path was right, he gently tugged at the elephant's trunk. The large creature turned a confused gaze toward the stubborn man. Struggling to snatch its trunk away, the elephant was thwarted by Dinesh, who held on stronger. Ultimately, the elephant lunged, moving its substantial mass away from Dinesh. The swift action hoisted its head above the rippling waves, revealing the nearby coastline. Spotting land ignited a newfound vigor within the elephant. As though it hadn't been battling the waves for hours, it began to vigorously sway its large legs. With this sudden development, Dinesh was shoved aside. The following events unfolded as anticipated. The elephant inadvertently struck Dinesh with its foreleg, and he took a harsh blow to the chest which sent him spinning in the water. His companion, seeing Dinesh in peril, acted quickly, swimming toward him and whisking him out of harm's way, narrowly avoiding the elephant's back leg. They dragged Dinesh back to the safety of the boat. Despite his obvious desire to remain with the elephant and buoy its spirits, his companions would not allow it. Fortunately, the elephant seemed to be doing well on its own, its sights locked on the shore. Before long, the elephant reached the coast. The local authorities observed each of the creature's movements, while a vigilant team, sent from a nearby wildlife reserve, awaited its arrival on shore. Reaching the shallow water did nothing to slow the elephant's pace. It advanced methodically until, at last, it reached dry land. Celebratory whoops intermingled with the crashing of the waves all around them. The elephant ignored the hollering, instead lumbering its tired body up the sandbar before sinking to its knees beneath the shade of towering palm trees. Veterinarians immediately approached the weary creature for an evaluation. From the outside, the elephant seemed to be okay, but after countless hours fighting against the sea, it was visibly drained. Consequently, several buckets of fresh water were quickly provided to quench its thirst, which it drank eagerly. To sate the creature's likely hunger, an array of succulent leaves were harvested from the nearby trees and bushes and sprinkled liberally with powdered supplements before being placed in front of the elephant. The vitamins would certainly aid in helping the elephant regain its strength after battling the ocean for so long. Meanwhile, the rescue team returned to their boat as the elephant took a much-deserved rest. Dinesh received an evaluation from the medic on board, who only found a mild bruise. There was no need for a hospital visit. The rescue boat was reeled back in and prepared for the journey home. However, each member of the team took a moment to gather by the railing for one last look at the saved creature. The sight of the elephant munching away at its bounty was a gratifying sight. Waves of the hand and fond well-wishes were sent from the vessel to the creature ashore. Naturally, at that distance, the elephant wouldn't have been aware of their presence, but the team couldn't leave without bidding farewell. The crew was taken aback when the elephant turned its gaze in their direction, lifted his trunk, and trumpeted. Expressing such gratitude for the rescue moved the team deeply, and a few team members were spotted surreptitiously dabbing at their eyes. The vessel embarked on its routine journey. Dinesh didn't get the chance to flaunt his navigation prowess that day. As a result of the elephant event, the ship lagged slightly behind its timetable, so there was no opportunity to allow the trainees hands-on operation. But they watched the crew work together. All the same, Dinesh was acknowledged and even received recognition for his proactive involvement in the rescue mission. The crew, with whom he had been on the patrol, presented him with a tiny pendant bearing an elephant figurine. He lightly teased that he already had a keepsake in the form of a memory. Even the knock from the animal, minimized by the water, resulted in a large bruise on his chest that was painful while moving during the first few days. But then the bruise faded away, and Dinesh never took the elephant pendant off. That necklace eventually was deemed a type of good luck token. Among the coastal guards, he was given the moniker Elephant. The vessel never ended up acquiring a winch, but they always had extra ropes and buoys on deck. You can never predict who might need a lifeline next. Regarding the elephant, he stayed on the shore until the following dawn. As the sun emerged, he journeyed further inland on the island in hopes of connecting with his pack. The idea of tagging the animal never crossed the minds of those who had provided him with food and checked his condition, so they were unsure if the creature found its kin. But they had faith that after surviving such hardships, the saved creature had found its peaceful corner.